sense. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Hafiz. Hey, Baba. And Hafiz also says, like, عشق می‌ورزم و امید که این فن شریف چون هنرهای دگر موجب حرمان نشود. So the story of Hafiz is just love and to love, and a story of Esfandiar was also just love, Meher Baba. And it says that, Hafiz says that I'm loving God and I will continue loving my beloved, and I hope that this trait that I have taken it and sincerely into my heart, this grateful work, like my other traits and my other arts and my other attributes, do not come to point of disappointment and to be sorry. And Meher Baba had mentioned that to achieve the God state, do absolutely nothing while doing everything. To find God, you must find yourself lost to yourself. To be infinitely conscious, you must consciously lose consciousness of yourself. So to achieve the God state, do absolutely nothing while doing everything, and that everything is to love God. Esfandiar, I had that great fortune to be a neighbor, with Esfandiar Vesali and his wife Shirin, or we called him Moti Shirin Vesali, and I basically was grow up, I was born when they were there, and since like baby, I knew them. And when I was a child, or just around 10 years or 11 years old, I started to write a lot of poetry and describing Baba and how much I have love for Baba, like a little child, want to be very expressive and talking about his thankfulness to Baba and how Baba is great. So I used to write all those poetry and then share that with Esfandiar, and he would listen to all of that, and he will encourage me very well, all the time. And then one day, this is what he told me. He says that, Mehernoush, whatever you write for beloved Baba, it has to be from your heart. Writing poetry is not just to put words together and make it rhyme and bring a beautiful meaning. Writing poetry is like when you go to your heart and you be too sincere, with the full sincerity, start to your communion with God. And so you have to be very, very careful that there is not even a trace of you in this picture. There is no trace of falsehood. It has to be reality. It has to be totally what is in your heart. And this is how that the great writers and the poets, they were able to plant the seed of love in the heart of whoever is reading their poetry. And this is how they are able to raise their consciousness. The reader's consciousness. So this is how a real poet has to do, and this is what the share is. Otherwise, every other writing is a mer. A share means a poem, and mer means like just a writing. It's just something funny. So he says, you don't want to write mares, you want to write shares, which has the meaning. Then, I was young then, I was like 10, 11, and I thought, wow, so all these great poets, that we have quite a few of them in Persian world, that they must have written all those beautiful poems from their heart, and that's what we love them so much. That's what their energy, the energy of the poetry is so carrying us still to generation after generation, heart after heart. And so that was very, very meaningful to me. And then, one day I opened up the Hafiz's book in front of him, and I said, let's, Esfandiar, I called him Amu. Amu means uncle in Farsi. I said, Amu, let's open up a Hafiz book. And then this ghazal came that it says, ای همه شکل تو مطبوع و همه جای تو خوش دلم از عشوه شیرین شکر شیرین شکر تو خوش. So that means, your beauty is so pleasant, and everything of you is so pleasant, and my heart is so in love with your kindness and your sweetness. So, and then the ghazal goes on and on. And so I was reading that, and Esfandiar was listening to it. And then he says, oh, Mehernoush, Hafiz must have loved you, because see what he has, he's telling you, that everything of you is so beautiful and so good and so lovely. And then, I was young and, and then by saying that, I felt like he had planted a seed in my heart, and that was the open up or glue that love of Hafiz in my heart. And I told him that, Amu, I love him too. And I just didn't just say it, I just felt it. So something went of that era of time of Hafiz just came back to me, and then I realized how precious his poetry, his writing, how divine it is, how sublime, how beautiful. So, later on, back in Los Angeles, we had more poetry and more sharing with Esfandiar, and it was just a beautiful moment, and other people would come and gather, and then we share, and one day he wrote me on a piece of paper, and he just gave it to me I didn't ask anything. I wasn't even thinking about it. But this is the paper that he wrote a note, and this is what he says. He says, پیر و مرشد حافظ یک نفر زرتشتی به نام پیر مغان و یا پیر آتشبند در شیراز که حافظ هم یکی از مریدان پیر مغان بوده است. حافظ شیرازی در اشعارهایش سروده است: حافظ تو برو بندگی پیر مغان کن، بر دامن او دست زن و از همه بگسل. So he just gifted to me, he wrote that down and here for you. So what it says, the Pir Murshid, or the master of Hafiz, is one who is Zoroastrian in the name of Pir Mogan or Magian master, Ya Pir Atashband. And he lived in Shiraz. And Hafiz also was one of his murid or lovers of Pir Mogan. In one of Hafiz's abiyat, Beit, he had mentioned, Hafiz, you go and serve the Pir Mogan, and hold on to his daman, daman, and then take your hands off of the rest of everything else. Just hold on to the daman of Pir Mogan and take off your hand of the rest. حافظ تو برو بندگی پیر مغان کن، بر دامن او دست زن و از همه بگسل. So that gives us the idea or the point that first of all, Hafiz's master who gave him God realization was a Muslim, and his name was Muhammad Attar. He was a God realized, and it was Hafiz's destiny that get his God realization through Muhammad Attar. But it took him like 30 or maybe even 40 years waiting to be called by Muhammad Attar, and he would call him like every 10 years and say, keep him for 3-4 days and then send him back. But during these 30-40 years, Hafiz had the opportunity to go to a Moghian master, to the Zoroastrian master, Pir Atashband, who lived in the ruins of a fire temple then, in Ruknabad, Shiraz, basically. There was an area by the river that the river would pass on, and around that there was a very old fire temple, Zoroastrian fire temple. And that master had some followers, and the followers would gather every night, every evening, and then they would play music like sitar, or tabla, all those Persian beautiful musics. And then they would share poetry, and perhaps, and for sure, that Hafiz was among those poets would share his poetry. And so basically, one can take or go farther a step and say perhaps that Pir Mogan or Moghian master was a minor reincarnation of Avatar, because Hafiz would go to the meeting and share, and now after 700 years that Meher Baba has come, Meher Baba remembered all those beautiful poetry and would bring up Hafiz and say, bring it, and this is how he said, and he remembered, and he remembered. So that comes in the mind that this is a connection. And in Iran, like, who doesn't love Pir Mogan? I mean, there is nobody. When you grow up and you start reading books, everybody falls in love with Hafiz. I mean, Hafiz basically in Iran is #1 bestseller for decades, for ages. It even sells more than Quran, So this is how beautiful it is. And so and then Hafiz had mentioned so many beautiful poetry in praise of Pir Mogan, because he knew who he was and the divinity of him. And what he was able to do is basically he kept his poetry, and through his divan, he put the essence of love for Pir Mogan in it and wrap it like a little bag of perfume and send it to all of us, so we still can smell that fragrance of the love that was happening in that time. So there is a beautiful poetry that I actually worked on it last night, yesterday and last night, and it's just so beautiful. And I started working on that with Thomas Wolfe, but unfortunately Thomas Wolfe is going through some medical problem. So we also pray for him that, Baba willing, he gets healed fast. Just want to make sure that I have all the pages together. Okay. It starts like that. حسنت به اتفاق ملاحت جهان گرفت. آری به اتفاق جهان میتوان گرفت. Hafiz is mentioning that your divine beauty and your divine purity in combination with your mischievousness and sense of humor, which is attribution of a man, and divine beauty and divine purity is attribution of God. So here Hafiz is talking to God-man, bringing the husn, which is from God, and malahat, malah, which is actually a human beauty, and mischievousness and namakin budan, to be cute. So, you as a God man, you have the both attributes of God and man. You have taken the whole world in your hand. Ari be etefaq jahan mitavan gereft. Yes, with the unity of those two, which is God and man, you can capture the whole world. So this is the meaning of unity. I mean, people think unity is we have to get united and with God, and therefore we are all united together. Because we are man, we are human being. Ari be etefaq jahan mitavan gereft. Yes, with unity, the whole world can be captured. افشای راز خلوتیان خواست کرد شمع شکر خدا که سر دلش در زبان گرفت. It says, the candle wanted to disclose and to reveal the secret of the hermits. You know, hermits are those people who choose to be in solitude, and they like to just love God, but out of not with regular socializing, but just in solitude. So the candle wanted to disclose, reveal the secret of the hermit, but thanks to God that the secret of the heart of those hermits was in the tip of the candle's tongue, and it never gets revealed because the tip of the candle is always burning and burning, so the secret never passed on. Okay. I just want to know which one is. Yeah. زین آتش نهفته که در سینه من است، خورشید شعله‌ای است که در آسمان گرفت. From this hidden fire that is burning constantly in my chest and is burning, and the sun of the universe is just the flame of that burning fire in my heart. So the brightness of that burning fire in my heart had captured the sky, had brightened the sky, because the sun is just the flame of that burning fire of love in my heart. میخواست گل که دم زند از رنگ و بوی دوست، از غیرت صبا نفسش در دهان گرفت. Here we can read it two different ways. We can even say از غیرت صبا نفسش در دهان گرفت, or از غیرت صبا نفسش در دهان گرفت. So what does it mean is میخواست گل که دم زند از رنگ و بوی دوست. It says in here گل is like flower. It's a flower which, all of us, we are flowers because we have that fragrance of God in us, and once we open up, that fragrance will open up and will be released. So in here, Gul is a devotee, a believer. So that rose or the devotee Arif wish to boost the color and the perfume of the beloved friend, which is in his heart. He has kept in his heart. But Sabah, Sabah is the morning breeze, and his job is bring the divine fragrance of the beloved to his lovers. So this is the morning breeze or Sabah that in mystic Persian poetry they are talking about, and this is his job. So از غیرت صبا نفسش در دهان گرفت. So the rose saw غیرت means bravery of the heart with the sense of discreet. It doesn't need jealousy. Unfortunately, again and again in English translation, they have translated غیرت as jealousy, but it's not jealousy. Sabah is not jealous. What it is the bravery of the heart with the sense of discreet, because Sabah supposed to be a carrier of the divine perfume to the lover, of the beloved's perfume to the lover. So here is a Zahid or a Arif or a devotee wants to speak up, wants to show up his perfume of divinity and spread it out. And then the Sabbath says, no, wait a minute. I'm not going to carry your perfume to the lovers. And therefore, the rose keeps his breath, nafas here is breath, keeps his breath in his mouth, and he's being quiet. Also, you can mention as غیرت sabah nafasash dar dahan gereft, or when it comes out suddenly, then with the bravery of the heart, with the sense of discreet, the morning breeze will, close his mouth so that perfume doesn't pass on. آسوده بر کنار چو پرگار می شدم، دوران چو نقطه عاقبتم در میان گرفت. It says that I was taking shelter like a compass to rest apart from the world. You know, I was thinking like a compass, which one leg is in the middle and one leg it just circles around. So Hafiz is saying that I was wishing or I was hoping or I was thinking that with my other leg I'm getting away from my origin, which is actually the leg which is stand still. And then I was just going around and having fun in the world and doing all the experiences and going to all my different reincarnation and involution and all my journey through that leg, going through and through and through. But what happens, I didn't know at the end of time, دوران چو نقطه عاقبتم در میان گرفت. What happens was, like a point at the center, the destiny, or the divine destiny, took me in the middle. Like I came out to my original point. I came out to own point. Like I was just traveling and circling with one leg, but one leg was in the middle, and then at the end I noticed that I came out back to my own point, or own creation, point of creation, my original point when I have come from. آن روز شوق ساغر می خرمنم بسوخت، که آتش ز عکس عارض ساقی در آن گرفت. آن روز شوق ساغر می خرمنم بسوخت، که آتش ز عکس عارض ساقی در آن گرفت. The reflection of the beloved's wine giver's face that day ignited in my cup of wine. And that day, because of my desire to drink that divine wine, which had the reflection of the beauty of the face of the beloved on it, it burned my whole harvest, whatever I have gained, whatever I had, my whole being, my whole self. So the love of, or the reflection of the beauty of the face of the wine giver, when it reflected on the cup of the wine, I saw that and I start drinking it. Or actually it doesn't say I start drinking it. It says that the longing or that show or the intensity of love of seeing the beloved face in the couplets of wine burned my whole being. I was all burned into ashes. And this is so beautiful. It talks about, people are these days are worried about the end of the world and all the calamities are happening and the 3/4 of the world is going to disappear and all that, and all this worry and fear and talks and stories and people lose sleep basically. So this is how beautifully he puts all of our minds back, grounded. It says, خواهم شدن به کوی مغان آستین فشان زین فتنه ها که دامن آخر زمان گرفت. خواهم شدن به کوی مغان آستین فشان زین فتنه ها که دامن آخر زمان گرفت. It says, I wish to go to the streets of the Marian master and having my sleeves spread open because of all these calamities that will be happening at the end of time and will hold tight to the skirts of the end of time. It will it will hold on to the skirt of آخر zaman, means the time of the end of the world. So basically he's saying that, yeah, there are going to be a lot of calamities and it's going to hold on to the world and there are going to be a lot of sufferings and a lot of that. But what I'm going to do? What I'm going to do, I'm going to have my sleeves. Sleeves fashion means like you want to dance, you want to celebrate. Like in celebration, I'm going to the street of my Mughian master, of my divine master, and start dancing and start to be happy. Because why? Because in another couplet, Hafiz has says, کسی آن آستان بوسد که جان در آستین دارد. That who kisses the threshold of the beloved is the one who's carrying his life, his all entire life in his sleeves. Like he has already given his life. So why are you worrying about the end of the time? Because we have already given. So here he's saying, okay, I'm going to come to my beloved master and start dancing and with both of my sleeves open. So that means even my lives can spread out and start dancing, because my life is within my sleeves. So, let's celebrate. It's a moment of celebration. It's not a moment of sadness. It's a moment of celebration because we have already given everything to him, That's what Hafiz's point of view is. And this is very beautiful. It says, میخور که هر که آخر کار جهان بدید از غم سبک برآمد و رطل گران گرفت. میخور که هر که آخر کار جهان بدید از غم سبک برآمد و رطل گران گرفت. Drink wine, for whoever will see the end of the world, the end of the work of the world, or what's going to happen at the end of the world, will come forward, free of suffering, and will hold the heavy cup of wine in his hand. So it will become lightened up because all the suffering is finishing up. Is the whole universe going to lift up from the suffering? And then will hold the ratle geran here means heavy, or the cup of wine which filled up with the divine wine of God. So this is what those people who can see the end of the world, like it's a moment of celebration, and also it's when our heaviness is lifted. Basically, a lot of karmas has been lifted from the world. A lot of suffering, lots of. Then this is also beautiful. بر برگ گل به خون شقایق نوشتند کان کس که پخته شد می چون ارغوان گرفت. So beautiful. Here we talked about the rose, or that arif, or that devotee that has fallen in love with God. But you know, the rose hasn't opened up fully to receive, big mass of love filling up into his heart. You know, the rose is still, tight in the petals and all that. But shaqayiq is poppy. Shaqayiq is like a red tulips, and tulips is like a cup. And then so those are like a cup, or their whole being are open up to receive the grace of love, or the beautiful wine. They actually they're there to receive it, to receive all the love that they can receive. But then what happens, poppy has a very soft petals, it's not strong like rose, So if you just pour wine into it, it's just gonna, basically dissipate, finish. But then they are mentioning, but then the wine, or the redness of that poppy is very beautiful color, and then it's mentioning that poppy has expired, has died. Why? Because he had the courage to receive that divine wine. And therefore, we are writing, or they have written down on the petals of the rose, that کان کس که پخته شد می چون ارغوان گرفت. The one who became to spiritual maturity was the one who held the divine wine as a poppy hold the divine wine and finish this effect. حافظ چو آب لطف ز نظم تو می چکد حاسد چگونه نکته تواند بران گرفت. حافظ چو آب لطف ز نظم تو می چکد حاسد چگونه نکته تواند بران گرفت. Hafiz, like water, grace is like water, and how the envious one can put a finger on Hafiz cho آب لطف ز نظم تو می چکد. Hafiz, since the water of lutf is grace, the water of grace is dripping from your writing. Every line that you write, it carries that water of like the ink of grace So it's so beautiful that whoever Hased means here, it means someone who is jealous of riding of you. So how can somebody who is envious to you point out at each dot that you write, because it carries with the water the grace of the grace. So the envious one cannot find anything to point out. So your writing is not just dots, it carries the grace with the writing, so basically. Okay.
Myrnish,
Yes, sir. Yes.
I don't know anything about Esfandiar. At the end, are you going to speak some more about him? You did at the beginning, and you said he was your neighbor.
Yes.
Are you going to say more about him on the end?
Yes, I'm going to say more about him right now. So I'm basically here very much finished with Hafiz and translating.
Thank you.
You're very
I love
welcome.
Hafiz.
Yeah, I love it too. It's just so pure. You know, it carries that purity with it, and it takes every doubt out of our mind. Yeah, you know, what would you like to hear about Esfandiar, so I can?
See, I was living in Maine, and he came to Myrtle Beach, and all my friends from Maine piled in the car and came down, and it must have been work or something, I couldn't go. But they all came home so happy that they'd met him, seen him, heard him talk and everything. That's about all I know about it.
Okay, well, I love to share a story with him. You know, when he went to Baba, actually, it was in Lower Mehrabad, and you know, they had made clothes and uniform for all the school children, school boys, and then they had their books and everything. So everybody has gone there to Mehrabad to study. You know, nobody has gone there to find God or fall in love with God, but I guess that was their destiny. So here, you know, the first day, second day, they were sitting, and then there were different group, of course, you know, the English is spoken, the Marathi is spoken, the Hindi is spoken, the Persian is spoken. So he was also in the Farsi spoken class. And his teacher at the time, Mehernoush McPherson.
Can you tell me about what year this was?
I think it was 1925.
Oh,
was
okay.
it? 1927, I think they left, no?
No, they were there till 28.
1928, okay, so around
27.
that.
Oh, okay, thanks,
Yeah.
thanks.
So he was like 14 years old, so he was one of the oldest ones, and he was one of the tallest one. So he was at the classroom, and his instructor, Mehernoush McPherson, from the Bustan Saadi. He's another beautiful Persian poet which talks from heart, you know. He said this line of Saadi that Benegar ke, I have written it down, I'm going to find it right now. برسد آدمی به جایی که ز غیر از خدا نبیند بنگر که تا چه حد است مقام آدمیت. So Saadi says the human will reach to a point that from there won't see anything except the divinity of God. Except God. Look how a human being can be of such a status to reach that point of seeing nothing except God. So that line had awakened something in Esfandiar at that time, and he thought that, wow, is that possible? Is that possible to see God? So he asked his teacher, and he says, is that really true? I mean, I can see God. I mean, what's better thing to do except seeing God? Like, wow, what's prestigious? I mean, the whole life, everybody is looking for the highest point, and that's to see God everywhere and in everything. So Khosrow Afzali very clearly starts to talk and say, yes, that's possible, and you can do it, and all that. So that poem basically lifted him up and brought.
Esfandiar.
Yeah, it actually brought that knowledge to him that it is a possibility, probably from his past lifetimes with the connection he had. You know, he carried on. So it was like an awakening point. And then, so he was kind of too fascinated with it, and he just couldn't study. He couldn't pay attention to anything else. He would skip lunch. He wouldn't pay attention to the program that the school has for him. He would miss classes, this and that, or he would just sit and not be there, not be present. And Esfandiar says, all I was thinking is how to see God. I want to see God. I want to have God. And then that thought was so increasing every day and every moment to get him to a point that maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I should go to a forest somewhere and then just go in solitude and remember God and try to find him. And then he thought that, if what's going to happen, he wouldn't worry about what I'm going to eat or anything or security or nothing. He just, he says that I only had one thought came to me. And what if a wild animal comes to attack me? And then he says, it's easy. Then at night I will go to the tip of the trees and shelter there because of wild animals. So he couldn't pay any attention and all that. So, Khosrow Afzali reported it to Baba. And so Baba came to the classroom. Meher Baba came to the classroom. And he entered, and Esfandiar was still in his own thoughts. And then everybody get up, because Baba have entered, and then he also get up and all that. And then Baba came to him and said, why are you not paying attention to your studying? And he didn't say anything. And then he on the board, he spells it out. Is anybody here has bothered you? Did anybody say something that upsets you, hurt you? And Esfandiar says, no, Baba. Then Baba says, are you not happy of the food that you are eating or your place? No, Baba, that's not true. And are you missing your mom, mother, father, sisters, brother? You want to go back? No, Baba. And then Baba, holds his face and says, don't tell me. What is wrong? Why are you not paying attention? And then he just honestly says, Baba, I only want God. من فقط خدا رو میخوام. That means I want God only. I only want God. And Baba is like hearing that. He basically with his right hand, he lifts him up, pulls him up, and he says, my feet was lifted up like, inches from the ground. And Baba keeps him there for a few minutes. And then Baba puts him back, and he says, I will show you God if you follow me. And then at that time he says, wow, it was just winning the whole world, everything. Like, what else can it be better? I can just be here and he can show me God. I mean, like I have won the lotto. I mean, what's the greatest thing? So then, Baba took her out of the classroom and he tells him, I will tell you a few things that you have follow. And one thing was, keep silence. Keep silence, and if any time by mistake you start to say a word, then come to me, and then so you just mention to me that I break my silence, and then I will forgive you. So that was the first thing. And Baba told him that I will help you. And so he didn't stay. He didn't. His idea. He says, the day that Baba came to the classroom and asked me what's wrong, it was at night. I had planned to escape, to go to the forest, too far away. So Baba knew, the timing wise too. So and then he followed up, and then he says it was just his love, and what actually Baba did with me, it just sent his grace, and his grace helped me up to catch up with where I lost my previous lifetime and continue. And when that love was too much, that I would have become like breathless, and I feel like I'm going to expire and die, I knew that I have to just get out of there, get off the moment and start walking and, just get out of it, because that wasn't planned for me in this lifetime to die, to drop my body because of that ecstasy that he was experiencing. So he would say that I was, I never, even though I lay down on my bed, I never slept even. It seems like my body was resting, sleeping, but my soul was constantly awake in search for him, in my heart, And then the love story goes on. And Baba takes him, it's a beautiful story, you all probably have heard him, that when he asked, just Baba asked Esfandiar just to follow me and follow my direction, actual obedience, Then he asked the two guys from ashram to bring his carriage, which is there, and then two were taking Baba in the carriage, and then he asked Esfandiar to just stand up by the wheel. There was just the area there that he could just stand up, and then Baba said the carriage to move, and then so the two guys were pulling Baba from the lower Mehrabad to higher Mehrabad. And but then Esfandiar felt like, oops, it's bumpy, it's going to fall down. And then Baba says, hold on my shoulder, hold on to my shoulder so you don't fall. So then the carriage goes all the way to upper Mehrabad, and then when everybody, he gets up and Esfandiar gets up. And Baba says, Esfandiar, did you see how bumpy was the road? How you could easily fall down multiple times? And did you see if you didn't have my shoulder, my arm in your hand, you would have fallen down? And Esfandiar says, yes. And then Baba says, this is what the spiritual path is. It's very bumpy, and you might fall down any moment, and you might expire, and you might, But if you hold on to my hand and take me as your Murshid, as your spiritual master, then I will help you to go through this path. Yeah, and then he did basically, he actually did.
So after the Prem ashram, did he stay in India?
No, then he went to, Baba sent all the boys back to their countries. He closed down. And he went, but then he just says, it was the worst news that I had ever heard, because it was so devastating to me. But then at that time I had to obey my master. I couldn't carry on my own will. I have to obey my beloved master. That's what I came back to Iran. And then he says, then I also had Baba with me. Baba was not away. Even the physical separation does not mean the inner separation is totally different. So he had Meher Baba in his heart constantly. And then he also mentioned, different of his experiences. He says that, he experienced the ocean of love, swimming in that ocean of love. And then in one of his meditation, because every single early in the morning he used to meditate, or even at night he used to meditate. Even later at his life he was meditating always constantly. Either be with people, attending to them, answering their questions, or just being with Baba. He was just totally with Baba. Like he would sing for Baba, cry for Baba, and it was so joyous to hear that cry of love, from someone. It's not the pain, it's the love. It's so joyous, to even hear that longing. So he did say that later in his life, during his meditation, or his meditation was not like intense of practicing something. It was nothing except to love Baba, just totally to have Baba in your heart and to love him. And to feel him and to see him and commute with him. This is what meditation is. It's just, and then at the time that you are not there anymore, and your mind is not there anymore. So you don't have any other thoughts of anything. It's just God. It's just the beloved. So he did mention that one night during my meditation, it was so beautiful, and he said that it was to a point that I could have, if I wish, I had the ability to create a whole universe. I had the power. But at that time, it was also given me the ability to love as much as I can to the infinity. And then since my master told me to love me, I chose at that moment, instead of using my power to create, chose to love him. As much as I could, I was just in the ocean of love, and that's what he chose, because his master told him, his Meher Baba told him. So this is what Baba helped him to pass through that fourth plane of consciousness, which you hold the power.
So he was very in touch with Baba spiritually. Was he ever in touch with him again physically?
In 1963, he went back.
Oh, he did, yeah.
Yes. What happened was, he was a family man. He was married, he had 3 sons, he was working, he was an agriculturist, a gardener, a businessman. He had to attend, he had 3 sons to raise, So basically, he had to work, and in 1962, Beidul writes a letter on behalf of Baba. Baba asks him, Esfandiar, what are you doing and how you making money or income to pay for your life? And he says that, oh, I have like about 30 cherry trees, and I also have like almond trees, or I do other fig trees. He also had beautiful fig trees that we as children, we used to go with him and pick up the figs, and we go up on the fig tree. It was so fun. Anyway, so he said that I have cherry trees, and that's our livelihood for this season, for this year. And if the harvest is good, so the money will take care of my family and all that. And if the harvest is not that good, but Baba will provide with other revenue and so forth. So then Baba, Baba wanted him to come in 1963. So Baba Beidul writes a letter again to Esfandiar, and he says Baba wants you to go to every cherry tree this season and to repeat his name and tell to every cherry tree that I want to go to see my beloved master after 33 years, and you make sure that you have the best harvest this year, so I can go and see him because of my heart's longing. So he would go to every cherry tree, and then he would repeat that. He would repeat, so there were like 33. And so sincerely, he did that from his heart. And that year, what happened in the spring, there was a frost, and there was like in spring there was a snow, and every cherry tree in the neighborhood and in northern part of Tehran, they lost their harvest. They lost their petals, their flowers, because of the cold weather. Except Esfandiar's. Esfandiar's cherry trees blossomed, and it had the best blossom ever. And then he took it to the market to sell, and since there wasn't any other cherry in the market, so he could have even sell it like twice and 3 times, and people would buy. So then he wrote a letter and he says, oh, I made enough money for the whole year, as well as enough money to come and give you a visit, Baba. And then Baba says, good, then you come. And he goes there in 1963.
Now, how old was he when he was your neighbor? How old was Esfandiar when he was your neighbor?
Well, when he was my neighbor?
Yeah.
Well, I lived there from my first, day. Basically, I was born to when I left the country in when I was about 17. Yeah, 17 and a half. Yeah, once finish up my high school, basically, I left. Yeah, I didn't want to leave.
Oh yeah.
Because who else want to live here? You listening to all this beautiful story.
So all your growing up years, he was there.
Yeah.
So if he was born in 1925, he would have been what, in his 50s, 60s?
Well, I think he was around 64, 65 when I left.
Oh, when you left, okay.
Yeah, I left in 1983,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Yes.
One time you told a story with your mother about how when you were neighbors with Esfandiar, he saved your house from a flood.
Oh yeah.
And another time there was snow on the roof.
Oh.
Can you tell those two stories?
Yeah, well, you see, that's very interesting, yeah. Okay, you see, when we grow up, we knew Meher Baba's God. Meher Baba's our destiny, basically. We have to love him. We have to love him. And, and Esfandiar is his man to help us, and then he made sure that he was watching after, in a sense, because it meant to be. He actually said that when you are connected with the avatars, somehow you are connected physically or something, you are connected. Or if you are in a spiritual path, then from that moment on, you're never going to be alone in any lifetime. Because there will be always, it's a divine duty. It's a divine duty to watch after you, to take care of you, so that you're never going to be alone. So all we need to do is love Baba and to make it first on the first step of a spiritual path, or to somehow get connected with Meher Baba in service, like provide services, helping, cooking for him, cleaning, anything that we can do, to have his grace, fall on us, and therefore he will carry on. So one time I remember there was a lot of rain, and the river was filling up. There was and then it was filling up, and it would come to a smaller courts, like the court of water was passing on. But then the rain, and then my mom was getting worried that the water is coming. What if it's going to come and hit through our door, our front door, and come inside? So here, Mehernoush, let's go, and here I'm there, and my mom has a shovel in her hand, and we are just there, and I don't even have a shovel with my hands. I was teenagers, and I was just trying to pull all those rocks and stones and trying to kind of divert the water to going downhill and away from the house, So my mom was using the shovel. And then I saw this man appear, out of nowhere, and it was quite looked like Esfandiar. The face and everything was him. Everything was like he looks like him. He was just didn't talk, and he was a little darker and little shorter. so I could see, and so he took the shovel from my mom, and like 3-4 nice, strong, using the shovel, throw the sand here and throw the, rocks here and, mud here, and then clear the path. And my mom, oh, thank you, Esfandiar, thank you. And he didn't say a word, and he left. And to me, I knew that he wasn't Esfandiar, but he was probably an agent who resembled him. So then my mom, so excited, oh, let's go and go to his house, and it was evening, and say thank you, thank you for coming. So here I'm going with her, and knock on the door and go, and then he's having a tea. He's sitting down on the living room, having a tea and having a best conversation with another man, couple of men, and having tea. And then my mom says, oh, how, you helped, thank you, you just came there, and he said, shh, don't say. So he knew that somebody else, another agent which resembles him had come. So he said, don't say. And then we kept quiet, and, we went until the guests left, and he says, Shireen, it was your faith on Baba that saved you. Don't worry about it. Don't think about that. But now he also helped me, and he appeared. Now what happened then? He only the agents, they only appear when it is very serious time, dead, if you're gonna live or you're gonna die, something like that. And they are like, angels do that too, because they are helpers to God. All we need to do is just love Baba, and then he will do the rest. He will carry on. As Hafiz says, we have to just have our life in our sleeves and just dance. We're just here to give away, to let go of everything. So let me tell you this story. How much more time I have, Angela?
At least 12 minutes. If
Okay,
you
yeah,
want
I think I
extra.
can finish up that story. Okay, so, I was about like 11, 12 years old, and then our house was very close, or actually the southern border of our property was actually adjacent to a padegah of military padegah, which was, or a military station which was taking care of the palace of Shah Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi at that time. So we were kind of neighbors. So, and we had a gardener, and his name was Abbas. And Abbas Mr. Abbas, we always call him Abbas Agha, because in Persian you always have to be polite, you cannot just call people with the first name, whoever they are and whoever they do. You just have to say that Mr. or Miss, he was a gardener at the palace of the queen, and then he also would come to our house and do some gardening for my mom, because they grew up in the same village, and my mom knew the family and so forth. And I remember every time that the queen, would order a lot of beautiful tulips and beautiful spring flowers from Holland, from Europe, and they would come, and then when they planted a lot in the palace around, and then there was extra, Abbas Agha used to bring those extra tulips and plant it at my mom's, in our front yard, and that always make my mom very happy. So one day, I was very curious. I was a very curious person as a child. I wanted to figure out what's happening. Where is here? Where is there? So I had it was summertime, and there was, since we had a large property in Shemiran, many of our relatives and friends, or friends of relatives, would come and stay in the family, and then especially the one with the children, or then they would send their kids to stay in the farm. So we always go and play outdoor, and we had mulberry trees. We used to go up on the mulberry tree and almond tree and cherry tree, all those beautiful apples. And so this young boy, his name is Behzad, and he lives in Iran, and he actually married my cousin, Myrtle. So he came to stay, and then I figured out, and he was like maybe few months younger than me, and I thought that, okay, now I got the man on my side, I have somebody strong, so now we are paired off, and we can go climb down the rocks and go to that military base and see what's happening, because I always see all those, soldiers with these big guns walking, but we wanted to be adventurous, that's the word. And now I find, because my sisters wouldn't participate with my imagination, now I find a young man, around my age, that he's also willing to be adventurous. So I said, Behzad, do you want to go? Yes, let's go. Wow, exciting. So we are looking, And then we are going climbing down for the first time. You know, I love the things that we do for the first time. So for the first time, we are climbing down that wall step by step. And then suddenly, Abbas Agha appears, you know, the gardener. But the way he appears, he had that a scarf, you know, Yazdi scarf that puts it around, you know, the men wear it. It's like a scarf, and then they tie here. And then I'm thinking that Yazdi scarf is a Zoroastrian thing. The Muslim don't wear it. How Abbas Agha is wearing that? But then he says that, Bachaha, why are you doing it? You know, kids, what are you doing here? You don't supposed to be here. Go back home. Khatar dare. Here is dangerous. And his voice resembled Esfandiar. So at that time I thought, and then he was, you know, so at that time I thought, you know, how can Abbas wear, you know, a scarf, and how his voice has changed to a Spaniard. But anyway, he just says, why are you doing here? This is dangerous, go back. So we went back, and then I told my mom what happened. And my mom got so upset at us. She says, are you crazy? You shouldn't do that. You should have lost your life. How did, you know, why did, so she got very angry at us, that why did we do that? And then he says, okay, but I will thank Abbas when he comes next time, that to save you, basically. So Mr. Abbas comes and, you know, for the gardening and all that, and here my mom goes, oh, Abbas Agha, thank you very much for rescuing my daughter and her friends, and they don't know, you know, better what would have been if something would have gone right, if it wasn't because, and Abbas says, what? I didn't do that. That wasn't me. And I'm like, whew. I wasn't me, but what are you talking about? That wasn't. And then I realized it was him, a Spaniard, who saved us. But he resembled, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, great story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, I have a witness because Behzad still is, you know, in Tehran, so we both saw him. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
one
you
more.
so much. Very much.
You can't tell that one story about the snow on the roof?
Can you refresh my mind?
Yeah, it was snowing and snowing, and it didn't snow that much in Iran, and the roof got really heavy with snow.
Oh.
And your mother was really worried because she couldn't throw it off herself, and so she sent over to Esfandiar to ask if he could do it.
Right.
Do you remember?
Not that part. Probably it's my mom's story.
Oh, maybe it's
and then
your
what
mom's.
happened?
Well, she sent over and asked him, but he didn't come. He said, in a minute, in a minute.
Oh.
And then, you know, and she's worrying, and so she asked him again, you know, to come over, and he's like, in a minute, don't worry. And finally, after a couple of times of doing that, he comes over, and he goes up in the roof, and in 4 minutes, he's cleared all the snow, which was just like impossible because there was
Because
so
of
much
4 minutes,
snow. Yeah, he
how so
couldn't
he
have done
cleared?
it. And your mother was just like blown away.
Yeah, okay, so no, I didn't
That's
know
your
that.
mother's
That was
story.
my mom's story,
Okay.
yes. Thank you. Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.